All right, hello. Welcome to my kitchen. In case you're new here, my name is Monica Glass. I am a chef and wellness coach on a mission to help you live your most joyfully nourished life through the kitchen. And so today, in case you didn't know it, it is National Oreo Day. So we are making gluten-free Oreos. Also, in case you're new here, all of my recipes that I will be demoing and live streaming are gluten-free. Today, we're going to be using one of my flour blends, my wildflower gluten-free pastry flour, to make the Oreos. Now these are crunchy and creamy and just so reminiscent of the traditional Oreo, but I'm making them gluten-free. If you don't need to be gluten-free, this recipe is totally adaptable with just regular all-purpose flour. And if you don't have your hands on my flour yet, you can go down below and find the links there, or go to my website at www.chefmonicaglass.com/shop, and you can shop on there. But you can also substitute your favorite one-to-one flour if you want to. I can't promise you the results since I haven't tested it with those, but please feel free to do whatever you want. We are making this kind of the traditional way. So some of my recipes you'll notice are health forward, and some of them are, sugar, butter. This one actually has some Crisco shortening in it because it's not an Oreo if you don't use those ingredients. Now, I do feel a little better about it because I know exactly what I'm putting into these Oreos, but sometimes you just want a cookie, right? And you want the real deal. All right, so let's make some Oreos. Another thing that I always mention is that, especially for pastry baking recipes, I highly recommend a scale. This is my favorite scale, a Scally. It's tried and true, trusted, has lasted me for years with very little battery changes. As always, I'm happy to share any links to these if you want to know any of the equipment that I use or my favorite pieces of equipment. And also the reason why I recommend doing it with pastry is because it is more accurate. Cleanup is so much easier and more efficient. And it's just, it's all around more accurate, will make your recipe more exact. And you know how sometimes when you make, say, chocolate chip cookies or a cake and it falls, or the cookies are a little runny, and it's because you're using cups and tablespoon measurers, it might not be exact. Like 1 cup might not be exactly like 114 grams. So that's why I use this. Now for this recipe, I'm actually going to start with a little spice grinder here, coffee or a spice grinder. Now, another way that we get our crunch in this recipe, besides just having a nice like sandy cookie, is I use some cocoa nibs. Beautiful little raw pieces of the cocoa bean. And we're going to grind it to a powder, not super fine, so it's completely powdery, but enough that it blends into the cookie well, but you still get a little bit of that crystallization, the crunch from the cocoa nibs. So I am just going to stick that. This is 45 grams of cocoa nibs. I'm going to put it right in my, there we go. One more time. That is looking pretty good. One more time. It's got a few big chunks of it, so. And you can smell the heavenly chocolate flavor. Now, if you do eat these, I love eating these. I love putting cocoa nibs in, say, like my granola, or topping yogurt with them, or even in, biscotti or chocolate chip cookies or something. They are bitter because it's chocolate without the sugar. It's the bean. Imagine eating like a coffee bean, but in small amounts, they're delicious. If you can see that, you can see kind of how fine it is, maybe. The camera angles are always a challenge, but we're going to put this right into our KitchenAid bowl. Get it all around the edges. And next, we're going to off to the side. We're going to cream some brown sugar, just regular old brown sugar. If you wanted to, you could always substitute coconut sugar. I love using coconut sugar too, but this is just dark brown regular sugar. And it is 130 grams. Next, 175 grams of unsalted butter, room temperature. So by room temperature, you want to be able to make an indent with your finger so you can press it so it's nice and creamy, but it still holds its shape. And it's definitely not melted. Melted will completely change the texture. Also, 175 grams is about 3/4 of a cup. If you really don't have a scale, it's about 1 stick and 1/2 of a stick of butter. Put that in there. And then baking soda. Baking soda is our leavening agent, and it also acts with the cocoa powder that we're using in here, which is why we don't need any baking powder. We're just using baking soda, and this is 8 grams, 1.5 teaspoons. Let me get this on here, and you'll be able to tell this is a fairly simple cookie. It's just, took me years to perfect. Just gonna get it nice and creamy. Meanwhile, I have 160 grams of regular granulated white sugar. You can use organic cane sugar. You can use whatever your favorite sweetener is for that. Cocoa powder. I have 75 grams of cocoa powder. I like to use nice, dark, I believe it's Calabo cocoa powder. Dutch processed. Some salt, 8 grams of salt. And then my wildflower gluten-free pastry flour. And you can use your regular all-purpose flour if you want to. This is a 1-to-1 ratio, or you can use any gluten-free flour blend that you like. Again, I can't promise you that another flour blend is going to be perfect, but I know my flour blend is, and regular all-purpose flour I've made with it before. In addition, I have 1 egg that I cracked already, 4 grams of vanilla extract, about a teaspoon, and then where's my chocolate? I'll take a little bit more. I have a small amount. It's 1 ounce, and it's really just to bring everything together, to really bring the dough together and enhance that chocolatiness and add some moisture to the dough. It's about 1 ounce, or 28 to 30 grams of dark chocolate. I recommend using a 60 to 72%. If you go lower than 60, it'll add more sweetness to your dough, and we do still want kind of a bitter cookie. An Oreo cookie, it has that bitterness to it. If you go further than 70, it might just be super bitter, but you can totally do that as well. You want it to be melted, but not super hot. Okay. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to pull it up. I'm probably going to scrape down to make sure that we're getting all the sides, but if you can see here, it is pretty creamy. I'm just going to go a little further. Sorry if I have to switch positions often. Sometimes it's hard to maneuver, especially when this is backwards facing you. But we can do it. We can do anything, can't we? All right. Going. Also with mixing or creaming in particular, whipping cream, anything like that where you actually want to build stability, I like to start it on the lower side and then increase the speed as it fully combines more, and that does a few things. One, it really helps aerate it properly and it helps combine it, and then say if you are whipping cream, it builds the proteins, they build stronger that way, and then your whipped cream will hold for longer. Okay, so I'm going to call that. It's nice and creamy. And now we're going to add the sugar. So the rest of our dry ingredients, we're going to add the sugar, the cocoa powder. Actually, you know what I might want to do? The salt, and then the flour. And what I'm going to do is put a towel over this because this mixer tends to make everything explode all over the place. So pardon me. A towel or plastic wrap. Actually, maybe I'll just do the plastic wrap. It's my little trick. You could use a towel. I just don't think I have any towels that are big enough right now. So plastic wrap it is. And this will ensure that the flour does not come flying out of the bowl. Oh, I'm still here. We're just mixing this together. And you can see how like there's a little bit of steam back here. It's not steam, it's actually just the flour, but it looks like steam, but it's a little flour flying up. Once it starts to combine, this is where it's kind of getting like sandy texture as well. It's more of a sablé type cookie. I mean, it's not exactly a sablé cookie, but it's along that line of types of cookies. I'm actually going to scrape down now just to make sure that you can see how sandy it is now. That's beautiful. Just make sure we're getting all of the butter down at the bottom. And also, if you need any recommendations on where to buy some of these ingredients, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. So just leave comments. You can DM me, message me, and I would be happy to share where I purchase some of my ingredients, or if you don't have access to them, where else you can purchase and what I would recommend. Cocoa nibs, I know, aren't something readily available in your grocery store, but you can get them at a lot of other places, mostly online though. All right, now that we have the sandy texture here, actually, I'm going to take it off just to show you in case you didn't see that. Go very carefully. There you go, very sandy texture. But everything is fully combined. It's sandy. Now we can add our egg and our vanilla, and we're going to bring the dough fully together. And then I'm going to drizzle in our chocolate and get that mixed in. Oh, it smells so good. Okay, our dough looks like it has fully come together. See, you can see that. It is a sandy dough, but it has come together. It's a nice, beautiful dark color. Oreos are pretty dark in color, which is why I like using this cocoa powder. If you use like a Hershey's cocoa powder, it's not going to be the same color. Okay, rinse this off. I'm going to need to do that again. And now, wish I had more paddles. Make life a little easier with more paddles. I have 2 bowls though, so that's good. Okay, at this point, with the dough, you could either wrap it up, put it in a plastic wrapped package, and pack it up. And you can freeze the dough. It'll stay good for 3 months, so you can have Oreos whenever you want. You could decide to chill it and roll it tomorrow. But I do think that the easiest time to roll it is right now. So what I'm going to do is at least roll a little bit of it so you can see. Let's see right here. Can you? Right there. Perfect. Also, I have a little round cookie cutter. It's about 2 inches. I think that's a good Oreo size. You can use whatever size you want. You can use a shot glass if you don't have a cookie cutter. That also works. But here what I'm going to do is I have a piece of parchment here. It kind of blends in with the wood. A piece of parchment. I'm going to give it a light spray with some nonstick spray. And I'm going to take, you can probably do this in 2 portions, but I'm going to take half of it. You can see like it does, presses down nicely. It is a little on the drier side of a dough, but that is absolutely the way that we want it. If it's too dry, if you still have dry pieces in there, just add a pinch of water until the dough really comes together. But this is perfect. And then you can just press it down. And also when you package them up, say if you're going to roll it tomorrow or freeze it, press it down. Do yourself a huge favor, because if you put a huge block or big ball of dough in the freezer or the fridge to roll tomorrow, it's going to make your life so much harder because the dough is going to be chilled and solid. But if you press it down to a good thinness, obviously it's not as thin as we're going to go, this is so much easier to get rolling, and it comes to room temperature faster, and it will just be so much more efficient and save you so much headache from trying to roll a big block. I've got that. Now I'm going to grab another piece of parchment paper. Give that a good little spray. Put it right on top. And take my rolling pin. And I like to give it a few presses first to get down in there, and then I go to roll it. And you want even pressure. Since we know this is not going to stick to our surface, also you don't have to use more flour because this is a dry dough already, so we don't want to add too much more flour, otherwise it'll make it too dry. But you can just turn this to really make sure that it's even. It's less about it sticking. And I also spray the parchment paper so it releases easy from the dough and the dough doesn't get stuck to it. And the dough also rolls a little better. Okay, let's see. If your dough does get stuck to the parchment, all you have to do is flip it, peel it, flip it, peel it. You can always use new parchment paper if you want to, but you should be able to peel it off and then spray it. Okay, let's see how thick are we. I'm going to go a little thinner. Using a lot of arm muscle for this. It is a pretty tough dough because we're rolling it out kind of thin. Okay. And another way that I like to check for evenness is run my hand over it, and you can really start to feel if it has any thicker spots. Like this is a teeny bit thicker, so I'm going to go and roll that out. You can see if your edges started to, cave under, but it feels pretty good to me. And so this is the thickness, if you can see that. It's about 1/4 inch thick. Oreos have some bite to them, some thickness to them, but they're not that thick. And this dough doesn't expand too much. Now what I would do, because I like to keep the shape of my circles pretty round, and if you move soft dough, it might mess it up. I put this on a sheet pan and refrigerate it, or you can freeze it if your freezer is large enough, until it's solid. Just like this. And now you can go 1 and 2. Let's flip that back. That'll be easier release from the paper. There it is. And now you can see it's a pretty solid dough. You can punch out your rounds. Pretty quickly, and you can absolutely get as close as you can to the other cookies without going over, because you want to keep the nice round shape. And on here, because they don't spread out too much, what I'm doing is I'm putting 4 across on my normal sized half sheet pan. I also have it prepared with a Silpat. If you don't have a Silpat or a non-stick baking mat, you can use parchment. I would just make sure that you spray the parchment and stick it to your pan in case your airflow in your oven tends to move it around a little bit, because these are not heavy cookies, so they won't weigh it down. But you'll go through, punch out all your cookies. You can save the scraps and re-roll them again. If they do get a little bit dry, just add a touch of water and to bring the dough together again. But you don't really need to worry about overworking the dough, especially not with the gluten-free ones. The gluten-free ones, because they don't have any gluten to overwork. But the chocolate ones, you can definitely re-roll like two to 3 times with the scraps to make sure that you get as many cookies out of the dough as possible. Because I know when cutting cookies like this, you tend to have some waste, but you're not going to have waste because you can re-roll them. Okay, and then after this, let's try to get these out. That's fine. Keep them there. After your cookies are all cut out and ready to go in the oven, preheat your oven to 300 degrees. I just have a regular conventional oven, not a convection oven. If you have a convection oven, you might want to turn it to 275 because they'll cook a lot faster. And it's hard to tell with these because they're so dark. So you could go from like perfectly cooked to burnt pretty easily. But I bake them at 300 degrees in my convection oven. It was about 25 minutes in this one. Actually, it was about 15 to 20 minutes in this oven. So if it's a convection oven, probably 12 to 15 minutes. Definitely play around, maybe bake 1 or 2 off first to test it and see how long yours is, because every oven is different. So I don't want to give you the exact time, but I think in my oven it took about 20 minutes today. But they'll come out of the oven and see they don't spread out too much, so you can put a lot on there. I could have even gone a hair closer, maybe put one more row in. They're crisp. You can hear that. That's exactly what you want before they get burnt. You just want to dry them out. And you can kind of tap on them and they'll feel dry. You will obviously be able to push your finger through them if they're hot, but they'll feel dry. And now let's start on the filling, because that's the favorite part, right? And you can put as much or as little filling in the cookies as you want. You could also dress it up some different ways. I was thinking, because I do have some bacon fat in my fridge, that maybe I'd make bacon fat filling. I think that'd be cool. I have not tried that yet, so I can't tell you if it's really good, but bacon fat and chocolate sounds delicious, or is delicious, bacon and chocolate. But I decided just to go to the traditional route. I am using Crisco, just, you're not going to eat that many of these, right? So a little bit is fun. But if you want, you can use any type of, spectrum, organic, shortening type thing, shortening spread. You could use butter. Absolutely could use butter. It just will have a different flavor. So whatever you're using, you do want it to be room temperature. Again, at room temperature, it is solid, but it is pliable, and you can definitely make an indentation with your finger. And so that is 1 cup, or about 114 grams. Or sorry, not 100. 1 cup. Oh, a half a cup it should be. That's all right. I put in a whole cup. So I need to take half out. Half a cup is about 100 grams. And then we're going to mix in 200 grams of confectioner's sugar. So it's basically a 2-to-1 ratio. And the reason why I'm doing that instead of like a normal, an American buttercream style thing where you want light and creamy, this you do kind of want on the thicker side. If you imagine an Oreo filling, you twist off the tops and you have like a sheet of filling. This ratio will enable you to get that. Okay, slow and slow. All right, it didn't spray everywhere. Yay! And then I also have some salt and vanilla. I have about 2 grams of salt. Just put that in there right now. You can always make more. Double this up, please, if you want to. I only baked 1 tray because I'm going to save the rest for later. And then this actually stays good. You can make a big batch, keep it at room temperature or refrigerate it for a bit and then pull it out and then re-whip it if you want to. I'm only making a small batch right now because I only baked it a small batch and I'm probably going to freeze the rest of the dough. But with the vanilla, I don't like to add the vanilla until the very end. I did not sift my powdered sugar. If you want to make it a little quicker, please, you can sift your powdered sugar. But by beating it enough, it will flatten itself out and not have any of those lumps in there. So I'm just going to bring it together. It does take a little bit because once it starts to come together, you also want to like whip it. So you do want it nice and creamy. All right, it's coming together, forming like little beads. And now it's coming together. So I'm going to turn it up higher. Hopefully it doesn't all come out on me. Some of it. Okay, that looks pretty good. You can see it's nice and creamy, but like it's thick enough that you can even hold it. So imagine having that nice thin sheet between your sandwich, sandwich between your two cookies. And then I'm going to scrape down and make sure that I don't have any lumps. And this actually looks pretty good. So see, it doesn't take that long. That's why you don't even have to bother sifting. Now, if you are making a huge amount of this, I'd probably suggest sifting it because then you'll have to cream it less. But now I'm going to add the vanilla. Oh, but I don't think I actually mentioned why I add the vanilla last. It's because if you do have any lumps in there, adding the vanilla will turn the lumps kind of brownish, and they are just so much harder to get rid of. Okay, looks good to me. Nice and creamy. Now, because I have brown vanilla, it did give this a slight tinge of like tan color to it. I don't mind it, but if you don't want the color and you want it like strictly white Oreo, you may use like a clear vanilla extract. Okay, to get all that goodness up. And now don't worry if you don't have a pastry bag or pastry tips. You don't have to use it. You could just use like a sandwich bag and cut the tip off of it or the edge. So you can use that as a piping bag. But because I was a professional pastry chef for years, I have a ton of pastry bags and pastry tips. And so that's what I'm going to use. So I have my tip in there already. It's a nice large round. I think the Tico tip is 804 if you want to know the number. And then I'm just going to transfer my Oreo filling. And now the fun part, sandwiching them. So here, I like to flip one side of them and then the other in rows like this. And that way they're just already set up for you to go. You can work down the rows and pipe and then sandwich. And so I'm just going in, did you see that? Yeah, that was good. In a circle around them. If you go like this, it won't have a nice edge. And you know, when you sandwich them, you want that kind of like clean round edge. So that is what I'm doing here. I'm also holding the bag lower because this is a little stiffer to pipe. So you might not be able to get it as much if you hold it at the top of the bag. So I'm just squeezing some down, using my thumb and my index finger to really gauge the pressure, as well as the heel of my hand, and giving it a squeeze with the other 3 fingers. Just going around all of them. And now for the fun part, we're going to sandwich them. Ooh. Look at that. Beautiful. And that's an Oreo. All right. And you saw how simple this is. You could make this in different stages, have it ready for a party or just to, holiday cookies, or just surprise your friends with some cookies if they're coming over. Or you could just make it all in one day. It's totally easy. There you go. Got some Oreos. Cheers and happy National Oreo Day. Those are good. So as always, if you make this recipe, please, I'd love to know. Comment down below. Tag me on Instagram at Chef Monty, or you can go to my website and send me a message. I'd love to see your creations using these recipes and, hear your feedback as well. And if you're interested in the flour, you can click the link below to go to my shop and buy the wildflower pastry flour. And let's see, as always, please say hi to me on Instagram. I love it. And comment down below. Thank you for joining me today. Happy National Oreo Day.